Hello, my name is Rima MD, and I'm the Medical Director of the Natural Solutions Foundation. Before I begin with the summary that I made of today's session as I sat and observed it along with General Stubblebine, the President of the Natural Solutions Foundation, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we're encountering when we attend a Codex meeting. It's quite clear that Codex is not happy to have us there. In fact, public observers, and there are very few, public observers like us are not supposed to sit in the room with the delegates, although there are plenty of seats. Public observers like us were not given the packets of documents that we need in order to participate and follow along with the agenda items and the conference room documents and the other documents that are an essential part of attending and understanding a Codex meeting. We had to struggle to get a packet of papers because we were not the head of a country delegation or a group that had been accorded observer status. And of course, they really don't want us observing, so they haven't been very forthcoming with official observer status for us. In fact, as you remember, when we go to Rome and we attend the Codex Commission meetings there, we are met literally with 2 armed guards, one to keep General Stubblebine away from the delegates and one to keep me away from the delegates. For some reason, when we have the alternating year meetings in Geneva, we do not get favored with armed guards. We do, however, get registered without the invitations to the events, without the information sheets that everybody else gets. And that's actually pretty funny. So we had to struggle to get our package. We didn't get the official packet that up until this year the public observers have always gotten. We didn't get invited to the receptions that they hold. We went anyway. And we had a very interesting experience when we seated ourselves in the upper tier of the meeting room at the Geneva Conference Center, because they made it as difficult as possible for us to plug our computer in. That's an old trick. They've done that a number of times. Now, during lunch, we were sitting and talking to one another and to a representative of the World Health Organization. As a matter of fact, we had a discussion about melamine, and we felt that the fact that melamine was allowed to be present in foods, including infant formula, at any level was problematic. She said, no, it's a good thing because melamine can occur naturally. And we said, how's that? How does melamine occur naturally? And she said, well, through contamination with plastics and other toxins. And we said, naturally? That's naturally? And she said, well, almost. And that was interesting. And we said that melamine was added in order to fool assays into thinking that there was more protein in the infant formula or whatever. And she said that melamine was naturally excreted by the body. And I said, I was not aware of that. And she said, well, this is a matter of science, you know. I said, well, actually, I'm a physician, and I know quite a lot about physiology and biochemistry, so I probably could understand it if you'd like to explain it to me. And she said, oh, well, in that case, you can go online and you can read the science. And please be assured I will, but the idea that melamine occurs naturally through contamination is a complete nonsense. So we were sitting there, and a delegate whom we've met many times in our trips for the foundation to Africa came up and said, oh, there you are. I knew you'd be at this meeting. I'm so glad to see you. How are you? Has the Codex Commission accepted your application yet for observer status. And we said, oh no, not yet. And she said, well, you keep on trying. And we said, well, you know, when we go to the Rome meeting, they keep us away from the delegates with armed guards. She said, really? We said, yes. We told her about exactly how that's done. And she put her hands on hips and she said, well, that's because they're guilty. You keep on doing what you're doing, because what you're doing is having an impact whether you know it or not. The delegates talk about what you say, and the delegates listened to what you say every time you say it. So you keep on trying, and you keep on coming. And I said, well, thank you very much. I'm really very happy to hear that. But you know, we've started asking a question back in the United States. She said, what's that? I said, our question is, should the United States be in Codex at all? And she stopped dead in her tracks and she looked at me with enormous surprise. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, what would happen if the United States got out of Codex? She said, I don't know, because we know that the United States is the most powerful force in Codex. I said, well, here's what I think would happen. I think that, first of all, the United States food supply would be a great deal harder to industrialize and a great deal easier to keep safe and clean, because it would pull the teeth from the industrialization juggernaut that is operating now. And by the way, that's why it's so important to take the new action item, even if you've taken it before, and tell Congress that you do not want S510, the fake food safety bill, to pass. The second thing that would happen, I said to her, is that Codex could actually become a potent force for health in the world through standards and guidelines that support healthy food. Because without the U.S. there to press for the damaging, genocidal standards and guidelines that it specializes in, sad to say, I think that the rest of the world could protect itself, its food, and subsequently the United States food, because after all, so much of our food is grown outside the United States and imported, in a much, much more effective way. And she stopped and she thought about it. And she said, that's very interesting. Well, she said, you keep on doing what you're doing because it's really important. And we said thank you. And we said that we would see her later this week. Perhaps we'll have dinner with her. Certainly we'll see her again in Africa, in her home country. I thought I would share that very interesting little story with you to let you know that Codex is complicated. Codex is multifaceted. Codex, as you know, is very dangerous. But Codex could be reformed by getting the United States out. At the end of this video report in 2 parts, you'll see a link that you can use to take you to the video that I made specifically on the question of whether the U.S. should get out of Codex, and then another link that takes you to the survey that we ask you to fill out to give us your opinions. And now, what happened today at Codex at the 33rd session of the Codex Alimentarius Commission in Geneva, Switzerland.